about drugs a little bit.
You want to use drugs that are long-acting injectables. Why? Because they're safe, they're not liver toxic, they don't have any side effects really. You can stay on those long-acting injectables for a long time and have no toxicity, whereas if you start to take the short-acting stuff like trinacetate or you take the orals, you're putting your liver under a lot of stress now.
What do you recommend for the novice 40 to 50-year-old guys just trying to look better in the gym?
I like keeping it simple. Stick to drugs that can be obtained legally. Drugs like Anavar, Deca, testosterone, obviously. You can go to clinics like yours. You have a prescription for it. You have people who are monitoring you. It's more acceptable now. At least you know what you're doing is real.
Welcome to the ManLab, where we combine science and health in the pursuit of making men great again.
This is how legends are born. This is how legends are born.
Welcome back to the ManLab. Today we have a very exciting guest. He is one of the bodybuilding greats, winner of, too many awards to list. The intro has to be short, but also the owner of rxmuscle.com and Species Nutrition. So please welcome the great Dave Palumbo.
Thank you.
I feel like I have to applaud.
We should have to applaud Dave.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Respect, for sure.
So I'm completely ignorant in the bodybuilding industry. I was when I was young. I hit 18. I remember asking someone, trainer at the time. I was like, I want to do the beach body version of it, and he told me I had to get bigger, and I was like, no, don't worry about it. Like I'm that type of dude. So, but the whole industry, I think, is a leader in terms of I feel like bodybuilders take all the risk of all the new stuff, and then it slowly has a trickle down effect for the rest of us. So it's a very fascinating industry, but.
Well, it's how Jeff and I ultimately kind of found ourselves in this business was, of course, using steroids and realized there was a business there. And then, of course, we looked to the greats at the time. We were reading muscle development and, at the time we didn't have YouTube to access and everything else. So kind of leaning on your previous expertise to a lot of the shit I tried.
Wealth of knowledge. I put him up there with like an evolved Dan Duchaine.
Thank you.
That's...
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So I was reading up on your history, and it said that you were a long distance runner, and then at 22 decided to get into bodybuilding, and then 6 months later you go into your first thing. That's a big shift. Like you're talking only cardio to then basically only weights. That's a big shift. What led you to that?
It's funny because I always tell people that I was like really a lazy athlete. In high school, like it just came really naturally to me. So and I never really. I wasn't that guy in the backyard who was practicing when he got home. You know what I mean? I was, I played with my friends on the weekend and stuff like that. And I was always one of the better athletes, but I wasn't the best. And in high school, I think that's when people started to pass me. Kids started growing. They start getting taller, and some people were applying themselves a little more. And when I went to college, I had lost my mom a couple of years earlier, and I was like, I don't know. Sometimes when you lose like your support system, sometimes you lose confidence in yourself. So I think I went through this like radical shift in like playing team sports to doing things individually. And I think I realized at one point, because my father used to always tell me, look, he never told me what to do. He was a good athlete too. He's like, but you take the easy way out. That was always his way. And so I said, you know what? I'm not going to take the easy way out with running. And so when I went to college, I gave like 100%, but like I became an extremist. Running is very similar to bodybuilding. It's actually worse because runners never take a day off. It's like every day if it was a torrential snowstorm, I would put spikes on, track spikes and go out and run in the snow.
Was it because it was addictive, or was it because of the challenge that you were given of you always quit?
It's addictive, and I wanted to be the best. I didn't want any excuses this time. I said I didn't know anything about steroids. I'm sure there were kids in college using steroids I didn't even know. So, I went to a Division III school. I was very good. I was, probably the best guy on my team at some point. And I was like starving myself because, runners, long distance runners, the skinnier you are, the better. And I had a predisposition to put muscle on, especially my legs. So I was always, in starvation mode, and running. And finally, I got to the point where I was in my senior year, and I'm like, you know what? I'm never going to get a date with a girl moving forward. And I had applied to medical school. I got it in already. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start working out. So I started like getting the bodybuilding magazines, and I was working with a guy who was studying chicken thyroid development and chicken thyroids and muscular development, and how the thyroid hormone influences muscular development in the embryo. And he was using chickens as a model. And I did over the summer, my junior year, and I did research with him. So I wanted to see if I liked research, because a lot of doctors go into research, and I hated research because it was too slow, but I liked the whole idea of, wow, this guy is actually studying something that no one's ever learned about. And that's where I first heard the word IGF-1, believe it or not. IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, used to be called somatomedin C. That was because it was between GH and the muscle. It was, so they called it, they didn't know there was a hormone in between there. And they had just elucidated this in the 80s. And then they renamed it insulin-like growth factor 1 because it had insulin-like effects. But that was the first time I'd ever heard that. I'm like, oh, what is this? What if people take this hormone? He's like, well, we don't have it to take. No, we can't make it. We don't have it. I said, oh, and then I started at this point, I started like getting a little more fascinated with anabolics. I hadn't taken anything. I was in the gym. I didn't know everyone in the gym was taking anabolic steroids. And bodybuilding was kind of the same addictive like thing as running, except it was controlled fury. It was like if you did too much, you actually didn't make improvements, whereas in running, the more you did, the better you got, kind of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So did you have a proponency to put the muscle on like as soon as you hit the gym? Was your body just like
yeah. I was afraid I was going to get fat when I stopped running, because I realized I had to stop running if I was going to put muscle on.
What was your physique like as a runner? Like, I mean,
before I went extreme, I looked like a rock climber. So I had these like thin legs, that were lean and like.
You're super vascular now.
Yeah, they were always vascular.
Okay.
And then my upper body was a little more muscular. So when I got into running, I started starving the muscle of my upper body, because it was I was like carrying around extra weight,
But you were walking around always as like a predisposed muscle guy. Because that was like kind of a question I'm going to lead to, which is like in the professional bodybuilding world, do you feel that most professional bodybuilders are kind of already on that road already to become bodybuilders in a sense, like a guy like Phil Heath or like Arnold Schwarzenegger, the guys, the greats, normal people who don't have that, can't just get to the gym and like create
genetic
that. Like
predisposition.
steroids, people are like, oh, he's on a lot of juice. I'm like, yeah, but he was built for this. Like Flex Wheeler. I mean, these guys have a different, different composition, to begin with.
I think there's different body types. Like take an Evan Centopani, for instance, who was a fat kid. Right? He's just has a predisposition to put on muscle, but he had to really work hard on dieting and taking the fat off. And that's why he's such a control freak with his diet. He eats so healthy because he doesn't want to get fat. But he has a predisposition to put muscle on. I mean, the guy has he had 20-inch arms probably after a year of training.
Right.
My father told me, he goes, you're never going to do well in bodybuilding. He goes, you don't have the arms of these guys. I had like a thinner arm, but I superseded my genetics, and I'll get to that in a minute. I'm talking about naturally. Guys like Evan said. Then you have guys that are built like me, who are just metabolic machines. Like we burn through everything, and we're always walking around ripped. And so even when we're smaller, people say, oh, he's got a good physique, this guy, because he's got veins and he's got, striations in here and there. And no matter how much we eat, we just don't get fat. But then when we start applying a bodybuilding diet, more and more protein, all of a sudden you start growing. And that's what I noticed when I stopped running as much and I started eating 5-6 times a day, because I thought I was going to get fat. And at some point I said to myself, you know what? If I get fat, I'll start dieting in, because the more food I ate, the bigger I got. It was like exponential. It was like cause, effect.
Do you think part of that was from having starved yourself for that period of time? Your body wanted to rebound.
Slingshot effect.
Yeah, it was a slingshot effect. And then I hit a plateau, but I did get to like 215, 216 pounds naturally. And I was relatively lean at that weight.
Find out if you may have low testosterone for free with the ADAM test. Now, sometimes it's a little bit nerve-wracking to go into a clinic to get a full blood panel to find out your hormone levels. And sometimes you might just want to sort of kick the tires just a little bit. If you are that person, the ADAM test is for you. All it is a couple of questions that are completely non-intrusive, non-invasive, that will help give an indication to you whether you may or may not have low testosterone. And the best part is the ADAM test is accurate up to 88% of the time. So for something as simple as a questionnaire, that is a very high number. Now, if you want to make use of that, you can do it online right now. It takes less than 30 seconds to fill out, and it is at bit.ly/free ADAM test. That's free, ADAM test. Now, if you don't want to remember that, the link is in the description of wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. And then after you've filled out the questionnaire, you will now have a better idea of whether you may or may not have low testosterone and if you need to take the next step, which is a detailed blood panel with a clinic such as T-Clinics USA. So again, to make use of that, go to bit.ly/free Adam test and let's continue to making men great again. Let's get back to the show.
And then I noticed I was stuck. And so I said, all right, you know what? And I had already read Bill Phillips' Anabolic Reference Guide like 6,000 times. I probably knew the book better than he did.
I have all of them still. I probably went back and forth multiple times.
I'm talking that book, the 96 book.
Yeah.
I knew that book. No one knew that book better than me. So I was giving steroid advice out to people. I hadn't even taken any yet at this point.
God.
So
it's like reading a cookbook and not wanting to eat, right? Like, I'm going to take something.
Yeah. So I knew what I wanted. I had the cycles all laid out already, and I just had to find the right people. And I remember I ran into this like meathead in like a GNC, and he just got out of jail or something like that. But he had a prescription for like a couple of, I think like Winstrol tabs and some, I don't know if it was Prima. I don't even remember what he had. It was like in a pharmacy in Jersey. And they had already made steroids a controlled substance at this point, but he had a Jersey, didn't have triplicate scripts. And he's like, I don't have a car, drive me there and I'll split whatever we got in there. And I'm like, all right. So he went and got all his prescriptions filled. I came out, we split the stuff and I started taking stuff. I mean, I'm talking like 50 milligrams of Winstrol every other day. And I think it was maybe 200 milligrams of Prima Ball in a week or something like that. And I grew.
Exploded.
Like people were like, they thought I was taking
Stupid
everything.
That was the road to 285 for Dave.
Yeah, well, I wasn't, but I'm saying I probably gained, I went from like 215 to probably like 230, like really relatively
I
quickly.
remember my first cycle, I took like just Deca before I knew that you're not supposed to take Deca by itself. And I went home between my freshman and sophomore year in college, and my mom was like, "What the fuck?" I put like 35 pounds on, no neck, just like she's like, "What are you doing?"
I'm bloated. I wasn't bloated because there was no water retention. I just looked like the same, except slapped 15, 18 pounds of muscle onto your body.
And I'm sure
people in the gym were like, "What the fuck is this guy doing?" And I literally I was not really taking very much of anything, and so.
Virgin receptors.
But what I realized was because I did another experiment just recently. I had been off HRT for 7 years because I had 3 kids. I was on nothing, like some HCG. That's it. No hormone replacement. And I had ankle surgery, and I wanted to make sure it healed. And I went back on HRT after 7 years of being off everything. And you would have thought that I did like 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week. And then I realized to me, I said, you know what? I'm a hyper responder. I was doing 80 milligrams a week, and my levels were at like 950 or something like that.
That's awesome.
And most guys can take 200 milligrams. They're not even that high. So everyone's body responds differently to anabolics. And I think I'm a hyper responder. So naturally, I'm not strong. I look good, but I don't look like a bodybuilder. When I take drugs, my body just like loses its mind. I don't need a lot, to get results.
So again, kind of going like you think that's the average professional bodybuilder makes it to Olympia and kind of
predisposition to grow. Now, if I had a better structure, if I was a little broader, bone structure wise, I'm sure I probably would have made it to Olympia stage.
Because we're always thinking, like, I'm always like, what the fuck do these guys take? Like, how many milligrams? And of course, you have those freak shows like Rich Pion and stuff who take things just for art, just to be stupid. But
you'd be shocked if the best guys probably got big not taking that much stuff. They might have then took more stuff once they got big and had money, but they probably didn't even need to. That's the
Is there a way to know if you're a hyper responder, or is it just you have to jump in?
You have to try because I never would have guessed. I mean, so I went from the guy who, like, my father told me, you'll never have big arms. And all of a sudden, my father one day says, "Holy Matt,
I was wrong.
I can't believe how big your arms are."
Were you a hyper responder to other things like caffeine or like alcohol or anything else that like you would like any other substances?
I mean, if you're a metabolic machine already, so it's like you respond to anything.
I break shit down really fast.
So you
too. So like if I take if you give me Botox in my head, it lasts like 2 weeks.
It's gone.
It's just I have a fast mentality, and it could be from all the years of running because there's a lot of guys, a lot of professional bodybuilders like Roman Fritz, and there's a couple other guys that were long distance runners.
The cardio
when they went back and started bodybuilding after that, they grew crazy legs and had really fast metabolisms. Because I think what happens as a long distance runner is you don't get bigger, right? The muscle fibers don't hypertrophy because you're not working those fibers. You're working the slow twitch fibers. But what they do is they build more mitochondria and more nuclei, become more oxygen efficient. They become better fat metabolizers. And then what happens? Then you start bodybuilding, and all these extra nuclei are basically extra muscle cells. Now you have all these extra cells that you've produced that you didn't even know were there because you did it from running, and now they just blow up. And then you have this increased metabolic, machine that knows how to metabolize fat better than anyone because we forced it to do that.
And
I
that's
wonder if
during
that's why
puberty as well. That's do you reckon there's a correlation with that where when the body's developing itself into an adult, how it's developed with those building blocks can also impact it?
I think environmentally, if you subject it to this severe oxygen debt, severe calorie restriction, severe, please give me more fuel quicker because we're running for 10 miles a day for 5 years straight. The body just adapts and it builds systems that enable to keep up. But you don't know it as a runner because you're small. And then all of a sudden you switch activities, and now it's like you genetically have something there that wasn't there before. You've built an apparatus.
After this episode, people are going to start running.
Well, I wonder if that's why a lot of females you see that get into the bodybuilding, their legs just get crazy big and their butts get just an immense amount of disproportionate muscle because traditionally women do more cardio. Like I think at least like the women getting into the sport, are way more cardio heavy than most men are.
And gymnasts, big legs and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, what you do as a child definitely affects how you look later. I mean, so whatever sport you're in, people that are just more muscular when they're younger are going to be, bigger probably. But the activity you do, I think, dictates it. And we don't really know how these genes are turned on and off, because we're still just learning about that. And so, I might have been an accident. I always say nothing is accidental. So whatever I did was pre-bodybuilding was for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So like now you're in college at this point, like kind of dabbling in like a little bit of light dose, and all of a sudden you're really growing. At what point are you like?
Yeah, I didn't use any anabolics till I got to medical school, actually.
Yeah. At what point are you like? Were you like, all
ironically
right,
enough,
this is something I'm going to pursue? Like, how quickly did you get in? Did somebody talk?
So I loved it. So obviously I saw results. When you see results, it's encouraging. I was like, I loved the ritualistic aspect of it, of having to eat, train, do this, do that.
The science of modification of your body.
It was mind blowing. And then the drugs, forget about it. I put it this way: when I took the medical boards, I took part one. That was the last thing I did. I never took the other two parts because I didn't finish. Part one, I got a perfect score on endocrinology, on hormones, stuff like that. So I obviously liked that. I liked it. I didn't do that well on some of the other parts, but I did very well on endocrinology. So it was something that I was into. I probably would have been an endocrinologist had I stayed in medical school because I really loved the hormonal, and I have a really good feel for it. Like I understand feedback loops and stuff like that. And that's why I can, explain things very well on video because I really have a good understanding of it. Not just from college. It clicks to me. Some people, do you ever see these math guys?
Yeah.
I had a friend that he could do calculus. You couldn't tell you how he could do it. He just knew how to do it.
Some guys can just take an engine apart and put it back together. To me, that's
just
never
freaks
happening.
like that. Yeah. So endocrinology was always like that to me. So bodybuilding was so engaging in that sense because you can control. And I think it was a certain part of when you're a young man, you want to get some control over your life, and we're all control freaks. And that was I felt like I had control over that. And I also had this. I've said this on other podcasts too. I lost my mom, and everyone on my mom's side of the family died of cancer. So I had this you know what? I don't give a shit. I am not going to do anything that I don't like because maybe I'll be dead by 42. Also, I had this stupid risk taking thing going on. I'm not going to try to kill myself, but I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to try to be the best at it. And if something happens, then so be it. Obviously when you get a little older, you change your mindset.
When it gets closer, unreal.
But I think I took more, but I think that's what enabled me to leave medical school. Because at some point I became disillusioned with the idea that every time someone comes in with a symptom, you give them a pill. You don't just ask them, hey, what are you doing that's causing these symptoms? And I didn't like that. And I felt like I was being brainwashed into always prescribing a pill.
I'm just picturing this guy in medical school and it's all these nerds that are like doctors, all yoked up, sitting there.
I wasn't that big yet.
240 veins out of his arm, ripping through your arms.
I had long hair too. I had a ponytail.
Jesus, I was like animal. Taking a test, hovering over.
I thought it was a rebel. Yeah,
a thing of chicken at the fucking.
But
studying.
I remember asking some doctors about what they thought about steroids, and they thought I was talking about prednisone. They didn't even know. They didn't teach you anything about that in med school. So no. Testosterone hormone replacement was
taboo as shit.
Yeah, no one would even think about giving that to anyone at that time. So I'm like, I'm in the wrong field. So I didn't like the
what
fact
year?
that
What years were you in? Just to kind of
91. So I graduated college in 90, and then so 92, probably around 92. So third year, I'm like, I'm going to take a leave of absence because I hated it. Hated working in the hospital. So the guidance counselor said, take a year off. You haven't stopped since, high school.
Best thing you ever did.
Yeah. She's like, you can always come back next year. It's all right. That was it. Once I started making money, which happened very quickly.
From the bodybuilding world?
Yeah, I don't know why. Because, I had such a good back. I started writing for magazines and I started
coaching a lot.
And I started doing, there was no coaching back then. People just come to your house and that's how I was coaching. It was like, I was learning how to coach people. But I was learning the world of bodybuilding. I was writing for some magazines because they knew my background educationally. And just opportunities present themselves.
And your dad and families, or your dad at the time.
My father probably thought I was nuts. My father's one of these people. He's like, I'm never going to tell you what to do because I don't want you to ever hate me and resent me, which I thought was admirable because it's hard not to tell your kids what to do.
Yeah.
But he didn't want me. He didn't want to be one of those dads, and so he thought I was crazy. He told me later, but he said, you proved me wrong. You obviously found your path, and so I feel like if you do what you love, you'll work way harder.
Yeah.
How quickly was your road to becoming a pro? Like how
well, I never got the pro card, but I started competing like in 92 really. I did a show in 90, but that was like just a natural show. And I started doing relatively well. And then 94, I really made a mark. I won a couple shows and I did the Junior USA and I was like third, which I placed, that was my goal, place top 5 at a national show. And then the following year, I put like 30 pounds on in like 18 months of muscle. And I won the junior national heavyweight class at like 258. It was like 228 like 2 years earlier.
You'd have been a pro if they would like.
Oh yeah,
if it's current
so
now.
I thought
Like it was hard to get a pro card back then. Like you had to.
100%. I did the USA at that point. That's when Craig Titus and Phil Hernan was in it, and Gerard Dente, and no one knew who I was other than this is the guy that won the junior national heavyweight class at 258, 2 weeks ago, and so I went there, and I probably should have been easily top 5, but they put me 7th, whatever, and then I realized I learned what the sport of bodybuilding was all about, and 96 I followed it up. I was 4th at the nationals, and that's when behind Jay Cutler and Tom Prince, and that's when I got in. So that's when people really started acknowledging me. I started getting contracts and I was making money. And then Metrex hired me, which was always the place I wanted to work because I wanted to learn from Scott Connolly, who became like a mentor to me. He's probably the smartest guy with regard to protein metabolism in the history of the sport. There's no one more knowledgeable than him. People just have no clue how smart this guy was. So he really educated me a lot. And so I had a few mentors that were guys I can go to ask questions to that knew more than me. Not many people at that point, but there were people, and I was like a sponge. I just absorbed information. And remember, the internet was good, but it wasn't great then.
Right.
AOL.
There wasn't YouTube to lean on to learn your daily topics.
No, I would have been afraid to learn from YouTube, to be honest with you, because there's so much bad information out there too.
Too much. Yeah.
What's your opinion? So, I mean, since your profession or your career in bodybuilding, there's now, like semaglutide, tirzepatide, and things like that available. Right. Do you think that has a place now in bodybuilding to help with bodybuilders achieving their goals?
I like the GLP-1 agonist because I have a lot of clients, usually women, who are cheaters. So they are always hungry, and especially if you've given them a lot of cardio. Cardio makes you hungry. It's a great drug because it kind of blunts the appetite between meals. It lets you eat, but it doesn't. You're not looking for snacks in between meals, and I think it works great. The problem is that when most people take this drug, they just don't eat anything.
Yeah, they take too much and they starve.
Or not even too much. You take too much, you get nauseous. But what happens is they use it as an excuse not to eat anything because they figure, I'm losing weight faster, but then they're losing muscle. So for physique athletes who take these GLP-1 agonists, they know what to do. They're still eating their 5 meals or 6 meals a day. They're just not eating between meals. So they're using it as like an appetite suppressant. And it does have some fat burning effects. I don't really know how much.
Well, because it's lowering your blood sugar too, so your body's more in a fat burning state when you do cardio.
Yeah, I don't know. They say there is a direct fat burning effect. I don't know what it is. Or
tirzepatide has that more than semaglutide.
But do you think that's just strictly more with the pancreatic improvement? So carbohydrate metabolism's improved on a whole nother level?
I don't know what's causing it, but for me, when I have girls use it, it's because they're cheaters on their diet, and it stops that. When you stop cheating, my diet works a lot better.
Yeah. Well, and
anyone's diet would work better if you don't cheat.
Well, and I'm sure. Like, have you taken it before?
No, I don't.
I mean, I could see it embracing the suck much easier. Obviously, applying it different than like Big Pharma has it set for like diabetic use. But it would make like getting down to those low levels of body fat for someone who's naturally not able to get there, kind of be able to adhere to that suck and not suck so bad.
If you are already a very strict dieter, it's going to do nothing for you as far as I'm concerned. It's for I have girls,
For the week.
they cheat. They do cheat. They eat extra peanut butter between meals. And when I put them on it, they don't cheat, and the results are much better. And that's
well, I mean, we use it widely in our business for weight control or just guys that.
That's the responsible way to use it. The irresponsible way is the way Hollywood takes it, which is this: take it and don't eat anything.
Starve the weight off.
Yeah, and they starve the weight off, and they lose all their muscle too. And so then it gets a bad rap because people say, "Oh, it eats muscle."
Ozempic face, Ozempic.
Yeah, it doesn't do that. Starving does that. Don't starve yourself. No one's telling you not to eat on this stuff. So that's America in general, right? We're just a bunch of like
Give me the pill, the
extremists.
shot,
Well, more is more, right? More is better at everything.
We're extremists.
What was the biggest you ever got up to, just before we kind of cap off your career on the
scale? I remember going to Gold's in Venice. I was out there one day, and I was in the parking lot, and there was always guys like photographing, and Steve Neese was the guy who photographed people for Muscle Mag. He's like, "How big are you?" Because I was big. I said I'm 319. He's like, "I don't believe it. Everyone lies." He goes, "Let's."
And how tall are you as well, by the way?
I was like 5'10" at the time, 5'10" and a half.
So you're my height.
Yeah. So I said, let's go. He's like, let's go inside and get on the scale. Now most guys wouldn't do that. I'm like, yeah, all right, fine. Because I don't lie about anything. So I get on the scale. I'm like 319. He's like, holy shit. So he goes in the parking lot. Let me take some pictures of you. They're online, some of these pictures. And he's taking pictures of me, and Mike Mentzer drives up in his old Volare station wagon because he would train people at Gold. That's when he was doing the heavy duty, like one set or whatever. He was training 1 million people a day. He comes in, he gets out of the Volare, he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. His hair is like all over the place. And, I had never met Mike. And he's like, he walks past us and then he stops. And he was a weird guy. Turns around and then he starts circling me. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He's like, holy shit, this guy's a freak. This guy's a freak. Who's this guy? This guy's a freak. And Mike Bench is saying this about me. I'm like, so he's like, what's your name? I said, Dave Palumbo. He goes, I've heard of you. Yeah. He goes, holy shit, you're fucking huge. He goes, you're a freak. I said, thanks. I said, that's a compliment coming from you. He's like, all right, I got to go. I got to train someone. And he took off. So yeah, I mean, 319 was the highest. I put it this way. Feeling. I was so heavy that I didn't, and you don't realize you're that heavy, that when I would like sit on things, I would break them. like lounge chairs at the beach, they would just go.
You can't travel. Airlines must have been a whole thing.
I traveled. It was miserable. The girlfriend I had at the time was skinny. It was small, so I would sit half in her seat, and then
so you walked on the aisle like, oh shit. I hope
I would be on the plane with like shorts to here, tank top. I would take my shoes and socks off because I was so hot all the time. Yeah. And this is, for some reason, the planes nowadays are really cold.
Yeah.
But back then they were sweat boxes.
You get edema.
And I would be like dripping sweat, like, all the time. And I remember Greg Kovacs, if you remember Greg Kovacs, who was 420 pounds at his biggest. His wife found this, they made it, Brooks Brothers or something like that, made a battery operated fan. And he used to have this little fan he would always take out on the plane or at any restaurant, he would open it up and it would blow on him. And so I'm like, that's ingenious. I need one of those. So she actually bought me one for my birthday and sent me in the mail. And I used to have the great coat. It took like 10 D batteries. The thing weighed like a ton, but it worked. It worked. Yeah.
And so were you in Venice for a long time when you were over there? Like I know of Gold's Gym. That was like the mecca of bodybuilding. Were you there often during your career?
Yeah. Back then, remember there was no internet. So the only place you can be seen as a bodybuilder is in the magazines. If you wanted to get in the magazines, you had to go out to Venice, California, because that's where all the photographers were that would shoot you. So after every show I would go out there for 2 weeks, shoot with everyone. And then I would try to get out there 4 or 5 times total a year. So every few months I'd go out there because you want people to see you and make contacts with people. And I had and then I started making friends out there, and I just liked it. I would get out of the winter in New York. I would go to California, and that was the place to hang out. Every bodybuilder was there. Every celebrity was there because where you were located was everything back then, because there was there was cell phones, but they weren't like, no one was texting each other and taking pictures and videos and stuff like that. It was, you had to be there, so to speak. And if you wanted to be in the fray and you wanted people to talk about you, you had to show up.
And that's
so
a
yeah,
far
I used to
flight,
go there all
man.
the
You're
time.
flying from New York to Cali.
Yeah, but I loved it. I didn't have a job. I was like living like the life of Riley. My biggest thing in the morning was, should I tan first or should I go to McDonald's first, or go to the gym,
That's a pretty good life.
Yeah, it was. I was living like, once I had a contract too. It was really easy because I was just like, my job is to train.
So you stepped on that. The let's go to McDonald's. Like, what was the diet component? What was your diets like typically back then? Not like the hardcore bodybuilding, getting ready for the show, but what were you like? What do you consume when you're 319 pounds? What was the?
Well, yeah, you know what? Initially, it was all clean food, and then I realized I couldn't grow. So then I realized my metabolism was so crazy that I had to start eating denser foods. Yeah. So I would start, I would eat ice cream at night and I would do like, pizza and stuff like that. And then I'm like, you know what? For some reason, burgers and fries always worked really well with me. And because there's a lot of protein in there. If you eat like 2 triple cheeseburgers or double quarter pounders, that's a lot of protein. Yeah. And then, the other stuff is just the icing on the cake, the fries. I would have some apple pies. And for some reason, McDonald's became my go-to. I would go 2 triple cheeseburgers, large. They had supersized back then. Supersized fries and 2 baked apple pies. Yeah. And I would eat that every single day. It was probably for 10 years I ate that every single day.
With that much lean muscle, you would be metabolism would be cranked.
Yeah, because that was only one of like 10 meals I was eating a day. So everything else was clean and I was pouring shakes. I literally would talk
about dieting be hard, but like trying to grow to that level and
it's way
keep
harder.
Going. Oh my
it's way
God.
harder eating when you're not hungry.
What's your approximate caloric intake daily?
Yeah, like that's why I was like, how much food
I
were
couldn't
you?
even calculate. It had
6,000.
Yeah, it had to be higher than that. Yeah. This is what I would do at least 6 times a day. I would take a packet of Metrex, which was like 40 grams of protein and like 25 grams of carbs, and I would mix 100 grams of Ultra Fuel.
Okay.
Into it. So that was 100 grams of carbs.
Glucose.
And so what is this? So now we're at 125 grams of carbs already. So that's like 600 calories. And then you got the protein. And I would do that 6 times. I would wake up twice in the middle of the night and do that shit.
So it's like a full-time job to eat as much.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Around the clock.
Do bodybuilders today still do like their diet consumption like that? I mean, because the food, fast food is trash now compared to even how bad it used to be.
Yeah.
But
I think it was pretty trash back then too.
I don't think
anyone, a lot of that
that
abnormal gut from all the inflammatory foods.
I think that it messed my gut up too. Because I knew nothing about fiber. I mean, it's interesting that now my number 1 selling product on Feast
Fiberlize.
is Fiberlize. Because I actually had to educate myself as to gut health. And no one knew about this back in the 90s or 2000s. This is recent.
Yeah.
I read something about, it's like there's a terminology like palumboism or something. And
some guys like try to
what is that exactly? Because I'm a complete idiot. What is that exactly?
They're trying to imply that by taking too much growth hormone and drugs that your gut gets distended. Yeah.
Okay.
My issue really, because I mean, obviously I don't have a gut anymore. So I mean, it's gone. I have rich shredded abs now. But what happens is when you're eating 12 times a day, okay, and you're getting food retention, and what really happens is, let's face it, the gut is muscles, right? It's a muscle. It's a smooth muscle though, which means it's involuntary. We can't control it. You can't make your gut work. What makes your gut work? Food in the gut. So when you stretch that gut, you're basically stimulating the gut to contract and to get bigger.
Yeah.
So when you're taking anabolics and GH and you're eating nonstop and your gut is constantly being stretched, it's growing essentially. Yeah. But like a muscle, it can hypertrophy and it can atrophy. So when you stop doing all that eating and you get smaller and you stop putting all that stretch on it, it
shrinks too.
The problem is that you want to keep the gut healthy. You want to. It's like you want to give it cardio essentially. Yeah. Fiber gives it cardio because the act of putting fiber into the gut makes the gut contract. Okay, and it makes it strong. As we get older, we lose 10% of our lean mass, including gut mass, per decade. You don't want that to happen because that's why people, when they hit, like when women hit in their 30s, men hit their 40s, 50s, they get constipated because the gut is weak. And then you tell them to take a fiber supplement, they take it and they get cramps and they're like, oh, I feel worse. Well, yeah, because it's like going to the gym and trying to do 20 sets of biceps after that. It never worked out. So I make people take half a serving a day for a week and get used to my Fiberlize product. And once they get used to it, they're like, oh my God, this is a miracle.
Is it similar to Metamucil Fiberlize, or is it?
See, when I was researching fiber, okay, first of all, my fiber contains soluble and insoluble fiber, but the psyllium is the key. The problem is that Metamucil uses the lowest grade psyllium.
Like
so there's something called swell rate with psyllium. So the more it absorbs water and swells, the more expensive it is, but the more potent it works because you want it to swell in your gut because then it puts that stress on and makes the gut work. So we use the highest swell rate psyllium, which is more expensive to do, but that's why Fiberlize works better than Metamucil.
Because Metamucil is like damn near the equivalent of like wood pulp in that stuff.
Well, it's got psyllium in it. It's just got the worst form. It's very powdery, and people say, how come they're so powdery and yours is like almost like pieces of like. It's almost like flakes.
Yeah.
I said because
it's like shaved wood.
It's the better source of the psyllium.
Yeah.
They're getting the crap that's like the dust that's left over afterwards, but it's cheaper that way.
Yeah.
And look, let's face it, they sell to 90-year-old people, so they don't need the best of the best. They just need to have good marketing behind it.
Something better than nothing.
Yeah, and so I mean, you had another question.
Yes, I mean, I think for our average client who, of course, comes to our business as well as listen to the show is, men in our, I'm 46. I think our average client's somewhere between 40 and early 50s, maybe early 60s. Just, tips that you would kind of say to these novice, I don't want to say bodybuilders in the sense that they're not trying to get on shows, but we're all trying to build our bodies to a point. What are some like kind of dietary supplements that you think, being in the supplement industry, all men should be on? What are the fundamental necessary things that if you're going to be in this game, you should absolutely do for both building muscle, but also maintaining health? Like what is a supplement regimen that you recommend?
Yeah, it's funny because I used to have like 25 bottles on I still have a lot of bottles on my countertop because I'm always experimenting with new stuff. But I used to have 25 legitimate bottles with every different vitamin. I said, this is ridiculous. I said, so I'm going to start my own line. I got to put everything in the concise because I'm about efficiency. Yeah. So I created V-Mineralize, which was my vitamin mineral mix. So it's my chelated minerals with all the vitamins in actual potent dosages, antioxidants, trace metals, and even some fruit extracts. And we have some blueberry extracts in there. All the things that I want in a multivitamin in one bottle, 10 pills a day.
Yeah, we built a similar product to your company.
Now, I laugh when people tell me they're taking a multivitamin. I said, please don't tell me it's one pill a day. They're like, oh yeah, it's one a day.
Get everything
I said, do you think you can jam in 1,000 milligrams everything that you need?
Pills this big.
It's impossible.
Yeah, I've always said to people when I was a personal trainer, I'm like, that's like saying you give someone a piece of steak this big, 1 grain of rice, and a little like leaf of grass.
We have a bottle called All-in-One that we did a similar concept. We put everything into one because I got tired of 2 of these, 3 of these, 5 of these. I would travel, and I'm like, I don't know what any of this shit is, so I can't put it back in the bottle.
I know.
So we're just like, let's just throw a handful of these in the bag.
Yeah. So V-Mineralize is one of our best selling products because of that. Same thing I did with the essential fats because you can't really mix the essential fats. So essential fatty acids, I have fish oil, I have evening primrose oil. Yeah. Your omega-3s, your omega-6s.
Yeah, you were kind of one of the first ones to really start pushing evening primrose. Like you kind of made it like known in the bodybuilding
it's
world.
The only place to get that and barrage oil is the only place to get
it's a EFA,
GLA, gamma-linolenic acid. So which is one of the essential omega-6 fats. The interesting thing about that is that when I went to the manufacturer, they said, well, we've never mixed an animal source of fat with a plant source of fat before. I said, guess what, guys? You're going to do it. Yeah. They're like, everyone uses flaxseed. I said, but humans don't convert omega-3 plant sources into usable form, EPA, DHA. You got to get it from animals. So I said, I need fish oil. So they did it, and the first time they ever did it, and I've been selling. That's our I think our second best seller. So the Omega-Lyze formula, and then the fiber. The fibers are our number 1 seller. So those 3 products everyone should take.
Fiber's your number 1 seller, really?
Number 1 seller.
Wow.
It's by far. Damn. And everyone, when I first came out with it, people, Steve Blackman, who owned Twin Lab, said, you'll never sell a fiber supplement to the bodybuilding community. I said, you're wrong, and you'll see.
Well, I mean, a lot of people sleep on the health benefits of just what it could do even with like your cholesterol profile.
Oh, it lowers LDL, It lowers blood sugar because it prevents the liver from producing, from releasing glucose.
I used to take Metamucil religiously, and I stopped. I stopped because I went on a few vacations. I forgot to bring it. I was like, I'm going normal. Like my gut is lasting, and I kind of lost a little bit of a bloat. I kind of had this like distension in my stomach, and when I was really lean, like I could tell. I got it out of my system. I felt like I didn't need it because I went to the bathroom, totally normal. Right. But I feel like it's maybe something I should consider reintroducing.
Normal? Just because you go. I mean, if you're eating 6 times a day and you're going to the bathroom, you might think you're going normally, but maybe you're not getting it all out.
Right.
Another thing I always tell people is I
just
know
feel better.
We don't want to talk about it, but
clean.
When you go to the bathroom, it just like it almost, you can almost don't need toilet paper. It just kind of rolls out of you because it's like a gel. It comes right out of you. And the great thing is you'll never get hemorrhoids.
I call those ghost poops.
Yeah. Well, you'll never get hemorrhoids because you don't have to strain.
Yeah.
People who get older, they get hemorrhoids because they're straining all the time because if you're straining, it means that your fecal matter is staying in your colon too long, and the colon pulls water out of it. So if your fecal matter should not be like blocks or logs. I know it's disgusting, but it is.
Really?
It is. No, it should be
so
like
blue,
it should be like a loose mass, gelatinous mass.
Right.
Yeah. And if you're
Like
if you're putting logs out, then
self-serve.
you're keeping it in your colon too long, which is not
dried
good.
out.
That should be like soft serve.
I'll tell you, everyone
Should be
who's
soft serve,
taking
like
GLP
a
should be
TCY soft serve.
definitely taking fiber.
Should be one continuous thing. Yeah.
Once you use Fiberlize religiously for like 2 months, you'll never stop using it again.
That's the thing about it.
What's
It's
your
like
opinion on
it's very
squatty
addictive.
potties though? Like having your legs up. I mean, that makes a
That
difference.
puts you in position for
Yeah,
that
like,
nice gelatinous.
It shouldn't matter whether you're standing, sitting, laying down. You should be able to go to the bathroom. If you
Oh, no,
have to,
I always can. I'm just
I know.
saying, like, as much, like, it's like.
Right, but I'm saying if you
that
have to
feeling.
do that stuff, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Is what
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
saying. You know,
Absolutely.
All right, so off
off
the
the
shit
poop-
talk.
off
Yeah,
the-
off the poop talk.
It's a great talk.
yeah.
What about sports supplements like creatine, glutamine, or what are you?
I do like creatine. More so off season for building muscle. I mean, it's a
We're
volumizing
big about it
agent.
just for like
Yeah.
longevity too. Like,
Yeah, a lot of people saying it's good for your brain.
Yeah.
ATP transport.
So I mean,
So
I've done the injectable NAD plus, which I felt was like kind of a creatine like effect. I don't know if it works by the same. It doesn't work by the same
Cellular
mechanism.
health,
but,
yeah.
but I think that I think cellular health is good. I don't really know. I know there's been some studies on creatine with like cognitive, ability. I don't personally haven't experienced that, but maybe I'm not deficient.
but from a bodybuilder standpoint, I mean, you can't go wrong taking creatine.
no,
Obviously.
I always say 5 grams post workout.
That's it.
Yeah, I think it builds up in your system. I don't think you need to overwhelm.
Is there a difference between pre or post workout, or is that just that's just you're
peri.
just doing that as a
I
staple?
think that there's only so much creatine you can hold inside your cells, and so if you take 5 grams a day, I mean, whether you take it in the morning or you take it post workout, it doesn't really matter. It's going to build up and it's going to fill those stores up, and you're going to keep topping it off every day. So I think they used to do the old sales pitch: 20 grams to load for 2 weeks.
Just the way to
It
use
was
it
just
more.
they
of it.
wanted to sell more of it. Yeah, I mean, but I think what happens is especially bodybuilders, they're eating a lot of protein. I don't think you need to add more strain to the kidneys to try to break down all this creatine into creatinine. It's just I think you're just overloading your body. You don't really need it.
you get a good amount from red
you shouldn't-
meat and
I
salmon.
see guys that take it backstage. I'm like, what are you doing? You're not drinking anything. Can't take creatine without liquids. It's very dangerous for the kidneys. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, you should always drink a lot of fluid with it. Yeah.
What other supplements do you think that every guy out
I
here
like
should consider?
aminos. I mean, I don't think look. I have the stuff that you absolutely should take, which is like vitamins, minerals, V mineralized, omega-lized, essential fats, fiber, extra vitamin D3.
Yeah,
sure.
I like. I don't think those are not. Those are what I call luxury items
yeah.
because everyone has only so much money. I mean, there are a few people like myself that will spend unlimited amounts of money on supplements, but most people have a budget. So if you buy those 3 products, whether they be from me or from you or from someone
Well,
else,
I think your Isolize has a good quantity of like EAs and BCAs.
yeah,
in
I
it,
mean,
right?
any scoop of whey protein has a ton of amino acids in it. But some guys have extra money and they don't care. They want to sip an amino acid drink while they're working out. So I have a product, Amino Evolved. It's all fermented aminos. It works great. People love it. It tastes it's unbelievable because if you've ever tasted amino acids, they are absolutely gross.
Well, an
tasting.
EAA tastes like shit.
Yeah, they're well, that's what BCAAs are essentially. So they taste like gasoline. You would never know that they're in this product that I produce because we use a very, very high end flavoring system. But it's still a luxury item. You don't need it. Now, protein powders like our Isolize or our pudding we have, which is Protolized,
Which is pretty solid.
Yeah, which contains 7 strains of shelf stable probiotics, which is really cool. Those are convenience products. So they're not luxury items because a lot of people just don't want to eat all that food. So if you have to eat 6 times a day and you're doing 3 shakes and 3 food meals, it's actually cheaper and it's easier to do.
When you're trying to go to 319.
Right. Yeah. Well, not even. If you're trying to grow, most men will eat 6 times a day. But if you do 3 meals, that's easy, and then 3 shakes, and it's cheaper. So we sell a lot of protein, obviously, because of that. But it's not a necessity, but it is, and it's not a luxury item. It's a convenience item, I call.
New Viva Medical Weight Loss has helped over 50,000 men and women in Florida lose over 500,000 pounds in body fat. Now, there are wonder drugs out there like semaglutide and tirzepatide, but it's important that these tools are used properly and safely with the correct guidance, because that guidance is what will help you make sure that you're losing that unwanted body fat while keeping the lean muscle mass. Nuviva Medical Weight Loss has over 10 clinics statewide in Florida with expert coaches who are with you the entire way, helping you with any habit adjustment, large or small. The secret behind Nuviva's continual success with their clients is their in-office expert experience. You will speak directly with a support coach, and if you have any questions, you will get immediate answers. If you are struggling, you will get immediate adjustments or pivots that will keep you on track with your goals. And what's great is you can choose the route of your weight loss goals. So if you just want to take diet adjustments and some supplements, you can do it. However, if you want to go a little bit of a stronger, faster approach and use semaglutide or tirzepatide, the Nuviva expert coaches can also help you along the way with that as well. So if you have a lot of pounds to lose or even just a few pounds and you know that having some support with an expert coach will get you there faster, contact Nuviva at either nuvivaweightloss.com or send them a message on Instagram at Nuviva Weight Loss and mention the ManLab for a little perk. That is Nuviva, Nuviva weightloss.com or at Nuviva Weight Loss on Instagram. So hit up Nuviva, get an expert coach, get that support you want, and let's get you feeling amazing again and lighter again. Let's get back to the show. Quickly, before we get back to the episode, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't on whatever channel you're watching or listening to the ManLab. And if you're listening on Spotify, if you could leave a 5-star review on the channel page, that would be greatly appreciated because that will help continue to push it a little bit further for whoever is looking for information to help improve their health. Now, on the topic of information, if you are on YouTube, you can leave a comment below on this episode and we will respond to it with as much information as possible, or it might be another episode down the road. The reason this is important is because the more questions you guys ask, the more we know what we need to do to serve you guys better in future episodes. So comment on YouTube, leave a 5-star review, hit subscribe, and let's continue to help making men great again. Let's get back to the show.
When it comes to proteins, like most things, there's good and bad. What is one thing you tell people to look out for as far as quality protein choices? Like, Is there anything on the label that, granted, I'm sure, hey, listen, you buy from you know you're going to get it. But if you choose not to buy, Species Nutrition, what's a protein like kind of look out for? No.
Well, this is what you do. First of all, it's all about how much you've extracted, how much protein is in the product per serving size, because that'll tell you right there what the quality of the protein is. So, first of all, if anything that says whey concentrate, do not take, because that means it contains a lot of lactose. If there's a blend where it's whey concentrate and whey isolate, I wouldn't take it because it means it's probably mostly concentrate. Yeah. You want a pure whey isolate, first of all. Now, if they say it's hydrolyzed whey, what that is, they take the isolate and they just throw some digestive enzymes in there.
It's also a little bit, they just, I think, make it a lot thinner so it digests a little bit better.
No, they digest the isolate. The problem is that if you have too much hydrolysis in there, it tastes terrible. So even the people that say they're pure hydrolysis, they're not.
Like
they're 10%.
True Nutrition used to have that, and I tried. It was
terrible.
Bitter beyond
right, because
bitter.
They didn't lie, because they don't lie. But there's some products out there, like Optum has a hydrolysis. It's 10% hydrolysis. Any more than that, you can't tolerate. You'll never drink it.
I threw it away.
So you're better off just getting a whey isolate. Now, when it comes to whey isolates, there's different grades of whey isolate. When I went to Glambia, which is the company that manufactures all the whey isolate, there's two companies really, Glambia and then there's Wisconsin Whey, which is the Wisconsin dairy cows, or Glambia, which is the Irish dairy cows. The Glambia is better, it seems. I've used both. It mixes better. I don't know why. It's just different consistency. So Glambia has different grades of whey isolate. So when I went to them and I said, well, what's the number one you got? He goes, no one buys this one. I said, well, I'm going to buy it from you. What is it? Well, we have it's the highest grade. It's very costly. I said, all right, I want it. So, and that's what I put in Isolise. So when you look at Isolise, it's a 33-gram serving size. It's 28 grams of protein. No one has 28 grams of protein. It's impossible.
Right.
There was one company, I'm not going to mention names, I'm not trying to bash anyone, that had 28, they said, and then they got caught protein spiking because they were throwing amino acids there to try to raise it up. But we have legitimately 28 grams of protein per 33 gram serving size. The other stuff, there's like a gram and there's no fat. There's like a half a gram.
Again, what you're saying is the physical weight of the powder itself could be
33 grams and 28 of that is
not
protein.
a bunch of added.
No one else has that. Most people, it's like 25, 24. That's usually the most you see. If you see 20, that's really low. But there are some out there too. But or sometimes those will jack up the serving size to try to bring up their protein. So if you see 27, 28, or 30, it's probably like a 43 gram serving size. So you got to look. It's a ratio. So no one has a higher grade whey isolate than Isolyze out there.
No,
so
your scoop's like actually on the smaller side, I would say, to get that.
And the good thing about it is that number one, it tastes great because we use a very expensive flavoring system. It mixes. You can mix it with your finger. Because that's what a whey isolate does.
There's that one company that has like the kind of gray label. It's pure.
Isopure?
Isopure.
Yeah, their isolate is not
No,
the quality.
Because I remember they used to send that little thing.
I don't know.
That was like their promotion. You would buy whatever
the
packets, and they would send you the little thing in there to mix clear in your water. It was a way to show how good their protein was.
There's a whole clear movement out there. No one's using it. It's very expensive, and I don't think it's any better.
Too, a lot of this.
First of all, think about what whey is. It's the liquid portion of the milk. Okay, that when they dry it, it turns to powder. So how do you make the powder go away? It's a powder. Even if you don't put any flavoring in it, it mixes as a white powder.
Yeah,
you
like
can't
creatine.
take away the whiteness to it. It's a powder it's a whey isolate. Yeah. So I don't know what they're doing to it to do that. I'm researching that actually just to see curiosity wise what they're doing with that, but. It's like trying to reinvent the wheel. Okay, if there is a process that becomes out there that we don't have now that's better, I'll do it. Believe me, because I want to have the best of the best. Right now, it's so perfect the way isolate that we use the Isolyze that I don't want to mess with it. Yeah. We have great flavors. We have chocolate peanut butter, vanilla peanut butter. We have cinnamon donut. Yeah. We even have a flavor like a pumpkin spice on the holidays. It's a really good protein.
What do you guys sweeten yours with? Like what?
We use sucralose. And you know what? I've had a million conversations with people about different ways of doing it. And I said, you know what? Nothing tastes as good as sucralose.
Yeah, it's like
it's such a small amount per serving. It's like a couple grains per serving because the stuff is so sweet. Mm-hmm. And you know what? People say, well, use monk fruit or use stevia. Yeah. Nothing is they're all artificial because you don't get all those things in nature in that concentrated amount. So they're changing it. So it's not what's
stevia
naturally.
Is bitter and gross.
Yeah. I mean, I've tasted some stevias that are not terrible, but you know what? It works for the 5 people that don't want to take sucralose. Yeah. They can go someplace else. I don't care. It's like people say, why do you make a vegan protein? I said, for the 10 vegans out there, they can go buy a vegan protein. I'm not losing any business from them. So
what's your opinion? So, I mean, right now, I think at least steroid use and HRT, everyone's like, we don't really care by like on a civilization. Like we used to really be anti-steroids, anti-HRT. There still seems to be this thing where a lot of celebrities are like terrified to admit it. Like you've got like people like John Cena, The Rock. They're like, we don't take steroids. It's like, bro.
Yeah, but you know why? Because WWE tests.
Yeah.
And so they can't ever say. Now I don't think they're even regular. They're like celebrity athletes. They're not really even working for the WWE. They just don't want to like bring that into the whole fray.
And also, like they have so many kids that kind of
most of those guys are also on HRT. They're not really taking big steroid cycles. They probably did back in the day. Don't get me wrong. But once you have muscle,
says he's quote unquote natural.
Oh, he's not natural. Once you have muscle,
you don't get forearms like that.
You don't think
natural.
he has like a myostatin gene?
No, once you have muscle, he used to work behind the desk at Gold's in Venice.
Okay.
Yeah, for Ed Connors. But once you have muscle, it's easy to maintain it.
So it's more likely they did it.
The Rock. I mean, come on, guys like.
I mean, I'm taking 80 milligrams, a week of testosterone. People think I'm like, probably on a lot more, but I'm not.
You're 60 twice.
What are you weighing right now, give or take?
I was up to about 215, and my blood pressure was a little higher than I like, so I kind of dropped it down to about 205 again.
Do you still train?
Actually, I train. I train with like I said, since I have my shoulder replacements, I train everything free weights. I train pretty hard. Oh yeah, hard? I mean. Heavy, relatively heavy for my size. Yeah. I mean, I'm pushing like 80-pound dumbbell presses.
Would you ever revisit taking steroids anymore?
No, you know why? Because anytime, even if I raise my testosterone a little bit, it's like I start growing and then I start getting like all these like not side effects, but I start getting like higher blood pressures. Then I start getting panicky. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get my kidneys.
I think, and plus you get to the point where you probably.
Well, if you're a hyper responder too, I mean,
I don't need to.
Right,
you already probably feel. Like
sitting here next to you, like I don't know if it translates through, but I mean. You're a big guy and extremely vascular, and I can imagine you in the gym got to look like a freak. I mean, once you get pumped up too.
Yeah, I mean,
and do you really want that anymore? Like,
look, I enjoy. It is as you get older, the number one predictor of death is usually loss of muscle mass. So you don't want to lose too much muscle mass, you know. So you got to try to balance that fine line. Plus, I have injuries. I have a torn quad that's still not. I have a fused ankle. I have 2 shoulder replacements.
Is a lot of that from bodybuilding? You think a lot of these?
No, I think it's from old age. Like the ankle, I have always had flat feet, and for some reason, at some point, the bones in the bottom of my foot collapsed.
Yeah,
and I had to have a surgery there, and then it went. Then they screwed up the blood supply to my talus bone. Then they had to fuse that, and then the quad. I slipped on a staircase in India. I mean, in 2012, and it just never healed
a bitch,
properly.
huh?
Yeah. So I mean,
how old are you now?
56. So, but
damn good shape, man.
The key is, and I always tell people, is no matter how many surgeries and how many things you have to go, you got to come back 100% and not like say use it as an excuse to be an invalid.
Which is
you know
so
what I mean?
common. Like,
Yeah.
Well, most people look for that reason to not train hard anymore. Well, I'm getting 50. I got that bad shoulder. It's like,
Yeah.
come on.
Well, it's
Like,
also
then you could
bad
train
advice.
something different heavy.
My
Like,
client cut her head open. She hit it on a tree or something like that. She fell, slipped, and cut her head. I cut my head open all the time. She's like, I can't go to the gym. I said, why not? I said,
you're
so
not working
what?
at the top of your
Is
head.
that's also partly because of like the medical industry, like general practitioners. That's the advice they give him. Because when I was a personal trainer, same thing happened. A client broke one finger, and he goes, "Don't train for 6 weeks." And I'm like, "You have 9 other digits,
Right.
and like."
Well, they
every
were always
other-
like post any plastic surgery. It's like, you can't go to the gym for 2 months.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'll be there
Yeah.
tomorrow.
I have a guy who got a tummy tuck. He's a really good friend and client of mine. And this guy was back in the gym in a week. I'm like, you're out of your mind. And he competed like 8 weeks after. I couldn't believe it.
I
And he
think,
looked good too.
You know, if you bind it, I had hernia
that's what he did.
surgery,
That's
and they
what
were
he
like,
did, yeah.
and then of course I fucked and blew it out. But
Yeah.
not training, by the way, but being stupid, doing something different. But I was extra careful, bind it, put like a thing on it to put extra pressure, and I ended up blowing the stitches out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you got to be smart, when you're getting older and training.
look, when I had the shoulders done, they said, don't weight train. I don't want, he goes like, you're going to get good results, but I don't want you to weight train for 12 weeks. I said, fine. He goes, I don't even want you to go near a gym. And I actually listened because it was such an extreme surgery that I did not want to redo it. Same thing with when I had my aorta repaired. I got a partial sternotomy. He's like, the only thing holding your chest together is wire. He said, do not train for 8 weeks. I didn't train for 12 weeks for my chest because I want to make sure it healed.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't
for
fuck
me,
with
that's
that
tough because I like to go to the gym. So I said, you know what? There's plenty of time.
Yeah, how is it mentally doing like not training for 12 weeks?
I'm so busy. I get so much more done when I don't go to the gym. So I used it as an excuse to just work more, basically, or get more stuff caught up. And I said to myself, look, you're going to come back better. Don't screw it up for yourself. And then you're going to have to get this redone or you're going to mess yourself up. So I said, keep yourself busy. Don't worry about the way you look at this point. You're not modeling for any magazine covers. So, just do your thing, do your shows, keep yourself busy. And when the time will come, and time passes like that.
It does.
So Dave, growing up, being into this business, like of course, Jeff and I both are kind of self-taught to a degree. And I say self-taught, we learn from watching shows, like yours and reading articles. Talk about drugs a little bit. So what out there do you recommend for the novice guys who are considering adding a stack to their lifestyle currently? What do you think is kind of a reasonably safe, easy to navigate through the use of it? What's a cycle look like for your recommended typical 40 to 50-year-old guys just trying to kind of look better in the gym these days?
Because of the fact that you can go to clinics like yours and other rejuvenation clinics out there, I like keeping it simple. Stick to drugs that can be obtained legally from a hormone replacement clinic. It's drugs like testosterone, obviously, DECA, Anavar, stuff like that. And at least you know what you're doing is real. You have a prescription for it. You have people who are monitoring you. It's more acceptable now. Whereas
was Tren a thing back when you were a bodybuilder? Was there a lot of Tren back then?
Well, we used Parabone when I first started.
Fill the pellets and break them out of the cartridge.
I didn't. I had a friend who used to make the Trenbolone assay for me, but no, we started with Parabone, which was like kind of a longer acting one because that was the only thing around. It was like they were little ampules. They were like
they don't make that anymore.
They don't make it. No,
What was
but
that?
it was
Tren Hexa
something in there. Yeah. And then we went to Tren acetate, which was way more potent, I guess, but also more side effects. But we didn't use a lot. I used to use 100 milligrams 3 times a week and get good results from it. And when you use Parabone, we would use 75 milligrams twice a week.
Because it was long acting.
It wasn't a lot, and we got really good results from that.
Because it seems to be the go-to steroid. Like to be honest, I tried Tren maybe once or twice. The cough I couldn't deal with it. So I got it twice, the trend cough. And I mean, for those of you guys who don't know, trend cough, like you shoot this stuff, the moment it hits your bloodstream, it instantly somehow hits your chest.
It's only like 10 minutes it lasts for.
Oh man, it's the most
no, I would say it's like more like 30 seconds, but it feels like 10 hours.
It went away pretty quick. Yes,
that's how you know you.
But then you do get like a spasm in the lungs.
But then you get the enanthate. So I switched to enanthate.
We would say you guys like him are pussies.
Yeah, I'm definitely a pussy. And then
I didn't even touch trend, so I'm even worse.
And then I switched to enanthate and tried it a few times. But my aggravation, I'd be driving the road just like wanting to rip the steering wheel off my fucking car.
What drug was like that when I was starting out? Because Trend wasn't really around. No, Anadrol. Everyone was like, don't take Anadrol. It's going to make you terrible. So I couldn't take Anadrol. Every time I couldn't eat anything. It would kill my appetite. So my recommendation is you want to use drugs that are long-acting injectables. Yeah. Why? Because they're safe. They're not liver toxic. They don't have any side effects really, aside from, if you raise your high
slower conversion.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can stay on those long-acting injectables for a long time and have no toxicity. Whereas if you start to take the short-acting stuff like trinacetate or you take the orals, you're putting your liver under a lot of stress now because the liver has to constantly metabolize these things every day. So I think a good strategy is like a long-acting injectable. That's testosterone, DECA. If you're going to go outside of the HRT realm, you can go into boldenone, which is equipoise, is a really good safe drug.
I used to really like boldenone.
Some guys are using Masteron too.
The problem with that with most guys though is you get that red blood cell development, polycythemia. So now
do you know how high my red blood cells are on 80 milligrams of testosterone a week? My 20, my hemoglobin. I got to donate. I don't know why.
You're a
hyper-responder. So it's not a specific drug that does that. They all do it.
Yeah, and some guys.
It's funny. I have it's called the European anemia or
Mediterranean.
Mediterranean.
Thalassemia. Okay.
And I can take anything of everything, and I never get polycythemia.
Oh, really?
I'm always on test. I mean,
because your red blood cells don't work that well.
I'm on full blown on full blown HRT, and I never get polycythemia.
It probably helps you.
Yeah, I feel fine because I keep my heme like 16 and a half. I could take equipoise; it'll get maybe to 17 at the very most.
I can look at a bottle of testosterone and it goes up to 19.
I'm like, thank God. Like, I still go donate blood periodically just for the stimulation.
I'm doing it now once. Well, thanks to you guys. I'm doing it once a week, once a month now because I can't keep it normal.
It's that's the shitty thing about being on androgens. Your body's always.
Well, if you're prone to it, it's crazy.
If you're prone to it, not everyone is.
Yeah.
No. Now, back in the day when I was 300 pounds, I didn't care what my red blood cell count was because I'm like, more is better because I'm going to be able to train harder.
It's like,
but when you get old, you need to keep.
Well, the concern of getting a blood clot, And listen, there's a lot of other reasons people get blood clots nowadays too. If they're vaccinated.
Plus, I have heart issues now too that I'm dealing, from the aorta repair, and I have a pacemaker because I have the electrical system got messed up when they did my aorta repair. So I don't need high red blood cells. Plus, even according to our good friend Brian Arseman, even sleep apnea can increase
for sure.
Red blood cells. So that could be a little.
Iron.
That's typically why you see
iron-rich food
or sleep apnea. Usually at blood.
Well, because your body's starved of
oxygen.
Oxygen, so it's producing more red blood cells to compete with actually getting it.
It's weird because I wake up in the middle of the night if I'm laying on my back, straight back, and I'm like gasping for air. If I lay on my side, I'm fine.
You should consider adding methylene blue. It adds more oxygen to the red blood cells.
Really?
So, and it's a good antioxidant and good mitochondrial health.
That and daily dose Cialis.
Yeah.
Really? You think Cialis helps?
Like low dose because it relaxes
lowers
the
your blood pressure
Your
too.
heart doesn't have to pump so hard.
Interesting.
Helps with BPH, enlarged prostate.
Really?
You got to remember your gym.
His vascularity would be out of control, man.
Yeah.
Because it gives you a nice pump in the gym too.
Well, I mean, you're delivering
I've used Cialis
nutrients
before, but I've never used it daily.
We'll set you up with we have vardenafil and tadalafil 5 and 5.
Oh yeah.
So Brian actually he loves it too, and
he had mentioned that to me, but I had never thought about it.
Yeah, I'll set you up.
You get the more onset quicker, so pre-gym, pre-sex.
Right before you go to the gym, and plus, if you need a little gas, extra in the
It's
chamber
right.
too.
I'll take it, and it's just like I'll forget my headphones, and I drive back. I'm like, I'll go later, but then I'm like, I have to go to the gym.
Well, the problem too with a lot of the higher
they're
dose,
good for the bedroom too. So
is it supposed to reduce pulmonary blood pressure too?
There's tons
and benign prostate hypertrophy.
Yeah,
too.
I know a couple of friends of mine who have a prostate issue who said that it helped them.
Yeah.
I've been on finasteride for like 30 years, like 25 years because of hair
for hair.
loss. Yeah. Didn't really work that well, but it stopped it. It just didn't regrow.
And then you're scared to stop because your body's been basically subjected to such a DHT. Well, and you don't have it, obviously.
I will say one thing. One of the clinics that I do some work with, recommended I try dutasteride,
Yeah,
which is like the second gen
hits
one.
both pathways.
Hits both enzymes supposedly.
Yeah.
That
Isn't it like
converts.
too strong though? I heard people say
destroyed
your sex
me.
drive.
Well, that's
My
why
sex
you gotta
drive.
like break
because
that down.
the finasteride never did that to me.
Where
It
you're
took
used to-
it took 6 months for that thing to reverse itself.
Oh, that's the problem. Like people
Yeah.
think if they stop finasteride, all of a sudden their sex drive comes back. I'm like, no, it's going to take months.
Dutasteride was I only took it 2 months and it was
I
horrible.
don't personally.
Well,
We
we
use
have
a
a- we have a custom-
0.25 milligram finasteride
With biotin
really,
and
really low.
minoxidil.
Then we have biotin and minoxidil to
Okay.
it, and it's enough to like block it from the receptor site component, but not enough
You
to
do it
shut.
topically?
No, oral.
It's oral.
Just enough to block enough of exposure because you don't want to block all DHT. I mean,
Well, you know, I found out I think that something I can recommend that people do is get your DNA tested.
Yeah.
I mean, I sell a kit on my DNA Power thing on my website, davepalumbo.com. I work with this company. And I found out that I didn't know this. I mean, I should have surmised it. I'm a crazy high DHT converter. I have gene defects like 100%. And, you know, I was a guy who had terrible acne as a kid. And when I took steroids, it was really bad.
Did you
I
ever
took-
take, like,
I took
Winstrol?
Accutane twice, you know, to just get rid of it. I didn't have like grotesque acne, but I had like the big boils on my back and stuff like that. When
So
I
you
would
just naturally had IDHT.
yeah, and I didn't know that I was converting. No one even checked DHT levels back then. So when I went on finasteride in 2000 for hair loss,
everything.
all my
fixed.
acne went away.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing I always tell guys. If
we
you're
call
breaking out,
HPS.
it's probably more a DHT issue that finasteride will cure because also too like the hair follicle stimulation. You know, you can grow like extra back hair and stuff too from
have
exposure of
tons of back
DHT.
hair.
And so you can actually reduce your body hair growth by taking finasteride and improve your hair on the head growth.
Yeah, I
So
don't-
it's
I don't have any
you
body
stop
hair
losing
anymore.
it from
Yeah.
your head and then
Yeah.
you start
But the
losing
problem,
it
a
from
lot
your
of people
back.
think that's going to help them with like DHT derivatives. It'll stop tests
No,
from going
no,
over,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not going to.
No, because if you take Winstrol, which is a DHT
But
or
most people are on
provider,
testosterone
yeah.
too. So,
Yeah.
you know,
You
they're
have
worried
so
about
much.
Winstrol losing hair. I'm like, the testosterone is way worse
Well, so
than,
we call
than
it
your
HPS,
Winstrol.
hair,
Yeah.
prostate, skin. So it's just perfectly balanced to be able to get the good, but none
Right,
of the
right,
bad.
right.
All right, so-
my
so-
problem. So anyway, to get back to my problem was that I convert so much to DHT
Yeah.
that I need 2.5 milligrams a day. If I
So
don't
you're
do
doing
that,
like a
it's not
half
enough.
of ProScar then.
I could take 2.5. Yes, I could take 2.5 milligrams per day and be on no HRT
Yeah.
and have normal, just mid-late range
So you don't
DHT
see
levels.
a lot of the side. Yeah.
Does your PSA come back high, or are you?
Thank God my PSA has never gone high. But you know what? I've been on finasteride, like I told you,
Well,
for
that's
30
probably
years.
why it's low.
That's
So,
protecting
and
it.
I stayed on it because I knew my dad had prostate issues with not cancer, but enlargement. So I said, you know what? It's probably protecting me. So
For sure, obviously.
that's why it's important.
And
to
at this
know
point, you've built up
conversion.
this like kind of protection against DHT. It's almost like putting sunscreen on every single
Right,
day.
right.
If you stop taking, you go out in the sun, you're gonna get
Yeah,
fucking fried.
yeah.
You stop now, man. Your prostate is gonna blow up.
No,
like a-
yeah, I'm not stopping.
Like hair's gonna all
Yeah,
fall
yeah.
out, prostate blow up.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're good sticking on. So besides the tests, you know, some long acting injectables. What about peptides, growth hormone? Like what are your thoughts?
I like growth hormone if you can afford it. You know, it's expensive, obviously. For the average guy, 2 IUs a day is really, really a potent dose. Very little side effects.
It's expensive.
Yeah, it's a little
I tell
expensive.
a
Are you,
lot of people-
are you pretty knowledgeable like ipamorelin and CJ1295?
Yeah,
Like,
you know what my experience is with that is that all these peptides that release growth hormone or growth hormone releasing peptides, they all work a little differently on every person. So some people are really responsive to them, like they have good pituitary output of GH. You give them that stimulus and boom. Some guys tell me they feel like their fingers are tingling like they're on real GH.
Yeah,
Other people get nothing
I get
from
the
it.
deepest.
Well,
We've
and that's why
had
you have
clients
to
get
pivot.
less growth hormone production when you check the IGF because IGF-1's not a great blood test to determine
'cause
how
right.
well peptide works.
Right.
Unfortunately, we check it initially to determine you have a low IGF-1 level, but we don't check it in a follow-up to see if the peptide's like fixing that problem
Right.
because the half-life of the drug is really only experiencing while you
I mean,
sleep.
it's
But
fine to watch IGF-1 with GH because it's converting over to
You know
IGF-1.
what? You could
but-
take IGF levels all day long and they'll be totally different
Oh,
values.
how you sleep, how you eat, yeah, they're all over the board. Yeah, you
So
can't.
let me ask you this: would you recommend, obviously, if somebody was supplementing GH, to do a peptide to keep their own production going? Because
No.
no.
No, because GH is not it doesn't get shut off like a feedback loop. It's pulsatile, like insulin. If you take GH, you just don't produce it while you're taking the GH. The rest of the day, you'll still produce it. So it's hard to shut down GH production, just like it's almost impossible to shut down insulin production in the body. It doesn't work on that like simple feedback
Right.
loop, the testosterone,
That's why I asked that,
thyroid
'cause you're
hormone.
big
then
on-
why
big on
not
the feedback.
GH in the morning when you wake? Okay, let's talk about GH for a second.
Yeah.
Morning or night
Morning.
before you eat, right? Fasted.
Doesn't matter. Because remember, you're not trying to release it. You're taking it.
Yeah, of course.
So it doesn't matter when you take
wake up in the morning,
Yeah,
take your
I
growth
take it in the morning. You know why? Because you don't produce it in the morning.
Right. At night.
At night you produce it, and after you train, you produce it.
And then you can take your peptide at night before you go to bed because that's when you're supposed to take peptides. So you get the best of both worlds.
If I was taking GH, I wouldn't take a peptide. Okay. Although some of those peptides make you hungry, like the GH RP6.
Right.
So I used to do that for hunger.
Or ibutamol.
I get ibutamol.
If you're not, if you're not taking GH though, then I think then those peptides are good because anything you increase is going to help you. But it's like throwing sand on the beach. If you're already on GH, you're not going to notice the difference. You know?
See, I notice like from peptide, the difference between peptide and growth hormone. You know, peptides I feel like make you feel better, where I feel like growth hormone makes you look better. One compared to the next because peptides make you sleep better at night. You know,
there's other benefits, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and so I feel like they're really significantly improve like your sleep pattern. I feel like you have more energy through the day. Growth hormone, I feel like you get a noticeable aesthetic difference. Like your muscle looks different, your body fat depletion is significantly improved. I don't notice when I take growth that I feel much different throughout the day because it is short term. Like I have that better workout maybe.
I noticed recovery when I used to take GH was way increased.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this though, since I haven't taken GH in a number of years because I had the thyroid issue, I take that BPC 157. I love it.
Oh, it's
I healed as well as when I was on GH, and I mean, I could if I go away like on vacation or I'm out of town and I don't, obviously I don't bring it with me. After 3 or 4 days, I feel it.
We got you.
All my little injuries.
We're gonna get you with the pills.
Yeah, all my little injuries start like flaring up a little bit. I'm like, holy, I can't believe there's really a difference.
It's really a miracle peptide. Like of all the peptides that exist, you know, I would say it's arguably the one that has the biggest benefit portfolio.
Yes.
And to a point that has the least risk, you know, I mean, almost to a point like of non-existing.
None that we know of.
Yeah, I mean,
hopefully we don't find that.
Knock on wood, because I'm not stopping that way.
Windex
and of course, it's on the list that the FDA is trying to get rid of. You know, so
well, you know what the problem is because it's never was an approved drug. I hope I would only pray that one of these companies
RFK hopefully is going to get behind that.
I hope one of these drug companies actually puts it out, and then once they do that, then these compounding pharmacies.
But doesn't that mean they have to those drug companies end up doing it because they can put a patent on it because it's a slightly different from the actual natural version of it? Isn't that a bit of a
they can only
problem?
patent mode and delivery.
Right. But you can still compound it generically.
Yeah. Well, big pharma somebody would have to patent the some component of it in order to fund the entire trial, you know, which is in the billions of dollars. And they're like, well, fuck it, this stuff's already out there.
They don't want anyone getting better. They only want
That's
you.
What it is.
So they're not going to do that.
Medicine and big pharma is about not allowing us to stay healthy without them.
I think RFK could potentially make a lot of these peptides legal because he's going to say, hey, there's only health benefits. There's no negatives to these things.
Yeah, you know, I do think, and this coming from a guy who's in this industry and we financially support them and they support us.
Right.
I think it is a little Wild West out there in the peptide world. And one of the problems is you have this shit coming in from India and China. And they got all these byproducts and people get anaphylactic issues from injections or toxic, levels of chemicals and whatnot. So it would be nice if there was some level of kind of control on them.
That's why I tell people go to a clinic like yours or
don't buy
Titan
research
Medical
purpose
or whatever.
shit
Go and get it by prescription, even if it costs a little more, because you know what? At least you know it's good.
Yeah,
you don't know what you're taking when you go to. If you go on a random peptide website that gets their stuff from China, you don't know what's in there, and there's no way to test it.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting it in your body,
we're gonna.
When you're in college,
listen,
we're going to start doing
compare.
Yeah, we're going to start comparing some peptides and showing reports.
What's in that? Yeah,
because I got guys that call me a time like, why is this company.com selling it for $30? I'm like, because it's garbage. Like, what do you mean? The same reason?
Because they don't know. They don't even know if it's good.
Or we have clients call us and they're like, that BPC shit doesn't do anything. I took it for 3 months and feel nothing. I'm like, where'd you buy it? And they're like, oh, well, this place, and I bought it. Buy 3, get 1 free. I'm like, well, fucking.
You know what? Bruce Neller told me this a long time ago. He goes, 90% of the stuff that people use out of China might all be the same thing. It could be everything could be GH releasing peptide.
Well, it's like in anabolic steroid.
How would you know?
Yeah,
right. Well, anabolic steroid world. I mean, how many times do people think they're taking Anavar and they're taking super low dose of D-ball?
Yeah,
because D-ball's cheap as hell.
What was that supplement back in the day? I remember it was like not Muscle Provider or whatever. Remember they used to put D-ball in it.
Oh yeah, hot stuff.
Hot stuff.
Hot stuff.
Agent Orange used to have like amphetamine in it or whatever.
No, hot stuff. Yeah. Listen, this is a true story. I was all natural. I started taking hot stuff because everyone's like, you got to take hot stuff. Hot stuff had every ingredient, every anabolic agent in the world. I mean, natural anabolic in there was in this thing, and it was a banana flavored like protein shake, and you'd mix it up, and it was kind of a little gross tasting, but it would give. I don't know what was in there. It would give you the worst gas of all time. And I would be in this lecture hall in med school, and I'd be like. And I'd be like, oh, I'm going to stink these people out of here. I couldn't. You couldn't control. I don't know what was in there that gave you the gas, but I'm telling you, people thought I was. They was all accusing me being on steroids, and I was not. And so, as far as I knew, I wasn't. There might have been Dianabol in there or something in there because I was growing.
Well, because then they get pros or people on the magazines say this hot stuff is the shit.
Then they change the
and
formula.
then they change the formula before they get caught and make it cheaper, and then they run that reputation for a couple years.
That guy owned an island, the guy. He bought an island someplace off of Miami.
I can imagine. I mean, he probably had to get the hell out of Dodge once they got caught.
He made a lot of money, that guy.
Well, the supplement things was with the Wild West because my friends used to live in America in 2012, and I remember they brought back home some like pre-workout stuff, and my same situation back with they had one scoop. We were going to go to the gym. Gym's shut, so we went stuff it. We'll go back home, and my mate's just there like tapping like this. He goes, "I have to go run," and he just starts running up and down the fire escape.
That's the big problem about being in the supplement business is you produce a product, especially with the weight loss ones and the energy ones.
Yeah.
The FDA is always changing that these different dimethyl, this and that, this banned.
Well,
so now you're sitting on 10,000 bottles and you get a letter, you got to destroy it. Like, fuck,
well, they don't. People sell them off, but they don't
Amazon.
destroy them.
We had a friend who went to prison for that. He used to make a product here in town.
Yeah, it was like kind of like a.
It was like a phentermine type of supplement.
That's because that's a drug.
But no, it wasn't. But it was called Fen something. I won't.
And when they were changing like
over the
DMA
counters
and something else.
Anyway, he got a cease and desist letter from the FDA saying that this is banned. So what he did was he ripped the labels off all of them, put a new label on them with the correct ingredients.
Oh, well, he
and then they bought them and tested them and.
Yeah, but that's fraud. What I'm saying, most people to do is they'll call up one person and say, "Hey, I got to get rid of this stuff. Take it all. I'll give it to you at like 10 cents on the dollar."
Yeah.
And you can just dump it all that way. I mean, because someone will sell it somewhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, you shouldn't do it. But my point is that back in 2012, Jack Owak from VPX was selling ephedra. It was liquid ephedra.
Yeah.
Remember the red line?
Yeah.
The original red line was
that liquid
ephedra.
you squirted in your?
That stuff.
Yeah.
Forget
Yeah.
about it.
The real the ECAs.
That's like you're on meth almost. You know.
You used to get the real
That's what I'm
ECA
saying.
stacks back in the day.
Stuff used to have, or was it hot stuff? That used to have it's like amphetamines in it. Like when they first launched, and then
I think they actually
really?
there was one that they were truly putting true pharmaceutical methamphetamine in there. I don't know.
There was always supposedly rumors that Metrex contained clenbuterol in it.
Yeah.
The first batches. So
but like I said, I mean, if you get enough great reviews for the first month, and you just like they used to do that with the over-the-counter, ED pills. They would put real Viagra in and guys like, holy shit.
Yeah, you get caught.
They tell all their friends.
You get caught, you're going to spend a lot of money on lawyers. Though.
Yeah, but they would tell all their friends, and then when they get caught, they would change the name of it from like White Rhino to Black Rhino or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of shady shit that goes on in the industry.
So what else? I know you got your ear to the ground. You're always interviewing people. What's the kind of next thing that's going to come out that people are probably kind of like excited about in the muscle growth world? Supplement, drug use. What are the things that?
My prediction has been gene therapy is like the next frontier. I don't think anything's replacing steroids.
So there's like CRISPR and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, are there ways to turn off like myostatin?
I think that's what's going to be the next.
Make my metabolism
generation.
like yours. To turn me into a hyper-responder.
I think there's going to be a way to block myostatin, but I think it's going to. This is now we're getting into like viral vectors that you're going to change your genetics. That we don't know if that can cause cancer. There's going to be some
bodybuilders don't care.
No, bodybuilders will definitely experiment with it. I think that's going to be the next frontier. But it's funny. But if you think about it, I've been in the industry about over 30 years now. Steroids is still the best thing still best bang for your buck.
Yeah, because SARMs kind of came out for a moment, but they kind of came and went, right?
Well, because SARMs, the strongest SARMs know better than Anavar. They're weaker
like
than
Rad
Anavar.
140, like
they're weaker than Anavar. So why would you, if you're going to use a SARM, you might as well use Anavar.
Well, because the idea is that it blocks the exposure to the androgen receptor sites.
But it doesn't, and Anavar has no androgen receptor.
They have a lot of like insulin, prolactin issues, a lot of them too, or cortisol.
We don't know how they work really. We don't know the side effects, but we know how steroids, we know exactly how they work at this point. So, I tell girls all the time, I said, if you want to grow, go to one of these rejuvenation clinics, get some real prescription Anavar, and take that. You're not going to get any side effects.
5 milligrams for a girl goes a long way.
Even 20 milligrams, they don't get side effects from it. So
besides too muscular.
I mean, but if I'm saying that's the goal.
Then they can lose their hair. I think
Anavar doesn't cause hair loss.
In women?
I don't notice it in women at all.
Really?
And I have most women take my Testalize product, believe it or not, which has got a natural DHT blocker in there. It's a very high quality saw palmetto. I give it to 15-year-old girls, and it gets rid of their acne.
If they're not intending to have children, women do wonderful on like low dose finasteride. I mean, you're not supposed to technically prescribe.
Because if they have a son,
if they have a son, it's fucked. But it'll turn out to be a in between.
Yeah,
but our 0.25 milligram ones for a female. I mean, their hair grows like
because the DHT is what messes them up, but like I said, saw palmetto works really well for a woman because they don't have a lot of DHT in their body. The older women sometimes have more because their testosterone levels are higher. Usually, some of them go on,
or the estrogen isn't balancing it out.
I don't even like women going on. You know how they put the women's on the pellets now, or a little low dose testosterone. I said, listen, you're going to get side effects. It's going to be cumulative. It's going to take a while, but you're going to get it, and then you're going to be pissed. You're better off doing Anavar.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Hey guys, so just quickly, we've noticed a lot of you commenting that you're not sure where you can go to get trusted and safe peptides, semaglutide, tirzepatide, testosterone replacement therapy, or testosterone boosting therapy. And we wanted to just mention that T Clinics USA is one of those places. Now, Alex and Jeff, who you see in this podcast frequently, they're probably in this podcast right now with me, they are from T Clinics USA. And as they've shown in episode after episode, details is what matters. So just because you may want something or think you need something, they are going to make sure that you are getting the thing that is right for the goal that you have. And what's better is they offer a 10% introduction discount to anyone who is listening to the ManLab. So that is you. So if you wanted to make use of that, get peptides or testosterone from a place that you can trust that have your goals in mind and want to show you the right way to get there, go to tclinicsusa.com, mention the ManLab for 10% off your first package, and you can even ask Alex or Jeff directly any questions you may or may not have, which is kind of cool. So just again, tclinicsusa.com. If you don't want to remember that, the link is in the description of wherever you are listening or watching this podcast. Mention the ManLab in the contact form and you will receive 10% off your first package. Now let's get back to the show.
So with the gene therapy stuff, because that's interesting.
Yeah.
What would benefit a bodybuilder? Like, if you could alter genes, what would a bodybuilder want to alter to become better?
There's a protein that the body produces called myostatin. We all produce different amounts of it. What its job is to inhibit muscle growth. So the less myostatin you have, the easier it is to put muscle on. There are Victor Conte, who famous Balco Labs, he tested a bunch of bodybuilders in the 90s for their myostatin levels, and he found that I know Flex Wheeler had no myostatin, and I think Livroni was very low in myostatin too, which is.
What about Lee Priest?
I don't know if he tested.
They have those cow breeds and those dog breeds that grow that crazy amount of muscle. They have no myostatin.
They actually have had kids born that were myostatin negative, so they have a much greater predisposition to build muscle. Now, there's probably a lot of people out there that have that gene that don't know it because they don't try to be bodybuilders. But if you can turn that gene off. Okay, or use a genetic method like CRISPR, which is basically a scissor that cuts out that gene and nothing else, assuming you can get it right. You can inject that into someone's body. They can go to every gene in the body and cut the myostatin gene out, and you potentially can grow better from
Interesting.
it.
Is there a way
because
to
you wouldn't
then
have a
reverse
block.
it? Like, could you then?
No. I don't think you can
It's not
reverse
you
it.
CRISPR and then you do anti-CRISPR.
Well, you could probably start taking.
Why
myostatin,
would you want it?
But you could maybe start taking myostatin like in some kind of format if you started growing.
I don't know if they have a synthetic myostatin.
No, you
the
want
problem with the
inhibit.
myostatin inhibitors they have today, like follistatin, is you have to inhibit myostatin 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
If you just do it 6 hours a day or 2 hours a day, you're not going to notice any difference. So you have to pretty much get rid of the gene.
So you get an IV drip of follistatin.
Yeah. So you got to get rid of the gene. So I think that will be the next therapeutic that they'll start probably in Europe doing it on some athletes. We'll find out about it here. We'll start doing it, get some of the technology.
There's got to be some kind of a fat burning, gene too, right? I mean, that would be arguably the secondary.
I mean, potentially. I think that the myostatin would be something that everybody would be like getting gyno surgery, right? Everyone gets rid of their myostatin gene because it doesn't seem to be something that's negative. So in other words, the people who are born without myostatin don't seem to have a predisposition to get other diseases.
Right.
You know, so
Interesting.
it seems safe if you can get the gene out without doing any other damage.
Yeah.
Because what if you clip a few other pieces out that really are not supposed to be clipped
Couple
out?
of
You know?
oopsies.
Yeah.
Could you end up doing? I mean, I don't know if you got the knowledge in this, but like I've seen some things where like they're trying to do CRISPR to get people glow in the dark or whatever. Could you do like maybe height, like because height in bodybuilding
I think
is a
so.
benefit because
Well, yeah,
6
but
foot
you
Increase
have to,
GH
but
output.
you'd have to do it before
Before puberty starts.
Well,
probably.
before your bones stop growing, because once they're capped,
Well, you'd have to
like-
do it like to young
in their
kids.
teens, yeah.
Before they even hit puberty.
because now you give these kids growth hormone, you know, and they're essentially
grow.
going to grow until they're.
A lot of those kids though, that
their
are on
growth
it,
plate
I was
stops.
talking to some of my friends whose kids know other
A lot of kids
that
are on
use it.
growth nowadays.
The problem is a lot of them can't do. They're like, oh, they can't do sports because they're too
pain.
sore.
Yeah.
I said, no, they can't do sports because they're not athletes. I
Yeah.
said, that's
Yeah.
fine. You give it to an athlete,
Well, so
they'll
I-
be better at sports.
My son's actually on ibutamorin. I
he?
didn't want, because he was right on the cusp. I was actually
Right.
growth hormone deficient as a kid.
Oh,
I didn't catch
really?
it until I was like 20.
Has he noticed any difference?
9-day difference.
Yeah, his kid
Really?
grew
Yeah,
like
he's
I
before
his
did-
kid
he's
grew like 8
insane
inches
now.
in like 2
He's
years.
my height. And like
Really?
he was in the bottom 10%. He was
Wow.
like the 60th right now.
And he has no like
No side
negatives?
effects,
Yeah.
nothing.
Just
I
hungry.
started
He's just
him
hungry.
low and
He's hungry all the
hungry,
time.
yeah.
Eating out.
Compensation.
That's
How's
probably a better way to do it because you're
It's
increasing
safer.
your natural
Yeah.
production.
You're training your
Well, as long as
pituitary
the
to do it.
pituitary, obviously, a
Functions,
kid that
yeah.
has no function, they're going to put him on.
Well, that
synthetic GH,
that would have been a dwarf person
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
So
Dwarf
that's me.
That is, yeah, you missed out. So what's the plan for you in the future now? Like you're doing YouTube freaking 24/7
Yeah.
and all that stuff. But is it to continue that or what is it?
Yeah, I'm an educator. Like that, it's funny. My father said to me, I've told this story a million times. He said to me, my father was an English teacher for 35 years in the public school system in New York City. He's like, whatever you do, don't become a teacher. He goes, not that I'm against teaching. He goes, but they're just not respected. You don't make any money. He's like, so what? I become a teacher. I'm a teacher, but I'm my own teacher.
And
so.
online teachers make money.
Well, you're
Yeah.
making
In
a
person,
couple more
no.
bucks. than I'm
Obviously,
sure.
it runs in our family. I'm good. My father was good at this too, and I'm good at taking very complex, topics and breaking them down into understandable, ways of doing things. And let's face it, YouTube is all about information. Most people are seeking information. It's not entertainment. It's mostly information. I mean, most of the time you go on there, you're Googling something, how to directions or understand a drug. I tell people, I went to medical school and I have a really good understanding of biochemistry and physiology, but I don't remember everything.
Right.
So I Google things and then I see it.
And then
I read it and it clicks in my head because I understand. I already have the background. I just need to refresh
Well,
my
and the
memory.
crazy thing is like sometimes
Doctors do the same thing in the hospital.
course they do.
They're
Well, think
Googling
about it,
stuff.
too. Like, I mean, I'm sure over the many years you've been in this space, it's
Yeah.
like you got a good foundation. You kind of play around with certain things, and then you come back around to it, and all of a sudden you get the aha click moment. Like,
Right.
holy shit! Like, okay, we could do A, B, C,
Yeah.
and improve it.
Well,
I
we're-
learn every single day.
Yeah.
I've changed a lot of my protocols and approaches to doing things constantly over the year. I'm not afraid to evolve. I'm not afraid to say I was wrong, and I'm not afraid to make changes. I think a lot of people want to stick. I'm always right. I'm never wrong. I can never say I was wrong.
There's been a shift in that though. I think with podcasts now, there's been this big thing where the people that are trusted are the ones that are like, oh, I didn't realize that, or
Yeah.
I made a mistake.
Right.
And it's funny because now the more that you are honest about your mistakes, ironically, there's this trust building habit like happening.
I think too the readily availability of information to the consumer makes you have to be more knowledgeable nowadays because I could check you quite easily.
Yeah.
Like we could be sitting here. I could be
Google.
Googling. What
That's
the fuck
why
is this guy talking about.
But that's why
he's
when
wrong,
people start with me online, there's a couple people that like to challenge me. I think they do it because they want to get some notoriety for themselves.
Right.
If I know I'm right, I go right after them. I'm like, all right, let's have a debate. You bring the topics, let's talk about it. Because I know what I know. I'll never try to pretend that like I know more about something that I don't know about.
Yeah.
Or if I think I'm wrong, I'm not going to argue the point if I'm wrong. So when I'm right, I'm like, let's have a conversation about it. And there hasn't been a single person that's ever taken me up on it.
There's definitely some kind of charlatan-based YouTube, Instagram famous people that regurgitate information, whether that's right or wrong. And then there's guys that call them out that you're like BioLane, who's like biocount,
Yeah, and the funny thing is,
fucking this
I
guy.
love Lane Norton.
Yeah.
And Lane and I had an argument.
Yeah.
We had an argument. We had a debate about
Who was right?
calorie. I think I came out on top of that. He was trying to argue the calorie hypothesis versus macro, which is what I was. And I let him off the hook at the end because I like him. He's a good guy, and
Smart
it was an honest,
goes in after,
good-hearted debate.
For people wondering what's the
Brecca.
calorie versus the macro argument, just in a
Well,
nutshell?
some people, he would say that it's all about calories, and I'm like, it's not about calories because
Thermic effect of food.
Because
That'd be low.
there's a thermic effect of food where protein stimulates the metabolism, so you can eat more protein calories, okay, than you can carb calories. So if you ate 2,000, calories of mostly protein, or if you ate 2,000 calories of mostly carbs, you're going to get fat from the carbs, and you're going to probably put muscle on and lose body fat from the protein. So calories are not equal to each other. And
Well,
so
and the composition looks very different too
Right.
in the long haul.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you could do a keto diet and high calories and look
So
sharp and good and lose weight, and then you could do that bunch of sugar shit.
Right.
And you're gonna put
And
away.
all that means is that food has an effect on the body that's almost drug-like. It instructs the body to build muscle and use stored body fat as a fuel source if you're using positive partitioning foods like lean protein sources, essential fatty acids, fibrous foods. If you're using high sugar carb foods, okay, saturated fats predominantly, those are negative partitioning agents. They tell the body store body fat.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is nowadays, which is kind of a dangerous reality, is that many people seek to guys like you or Gary Brecca or Lane Norton or Lane
Norton, yeah.
For essentially their medical advice to a point, and they're starting to follow some of these doctors and the carnivore diets, and it's like some of this
Saladino.
information can be dangerous. Dr.
Yeah, you
Arslan and
gotta
I
be careful with that guy.
had a conversation about the carnivore diet, and he's like, dude, there's doctors out there promoting this and saying this is healthy and heart healthy, and I'm going to sit here as a cardiologist and sit here and say they're absolutely wrong. You carry a lot of responsibility if you choose to do this.
The thing I don't understand about the carnivore diet, because people ask me about this all the time, I said it's a ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
Well, I was
Right?
gonna.
So
It's
we
an
know that.
extreme version of it, yeah.
But it's extreme. So why does it eliminate all the good aspects of the ketogenic diet that I espouse? Essential fatty acids, low glycemic,
Because you like keto
low
diet.
carb
Well, I was gonna get-
vegetables.
Yeah.
Oils like
I think
macadamia
it's
nut oil.
also the humans.
That's the good stuff that actually
Yeah.
keeps your heart healthy.
Yeah.
That's why Arsaman doesn't like I don't like the carnivore because it doesn't have any of that.
It's
stuff.
also
because you're
humans-
just eating pure
humans
animal
want the
fat.
new
Yes.
thing though. Humans will always want the next thing. Like, it's my favorite meme of all time, an overweight lady crying in the gutter going, I've tried everything except for diet and exercise.
Yeah.
And, there are people out there like Paul Saladino. I think he's very, very smart. However, there is a trend of him following trends. He was carnivore MD when Liver King was popping. He was shirtless in every video. Then the Liver King blows up because of steroid use and his hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And then Paul Saladino does a pivot. He's wearing shirts again, and now he's on seed oils. And you're like, now he's hyper focusing on that, and then anti-vegetables. Where I'm like,
What's your opinion on seed oil, by the way?
In terms of cooking with them,
As far as it being like so villainized as the world saying it's the
problem
the root
is
of all evil.
Polyunsaturated fats, which are seed oils, corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, they're not supposed to be heated. Polyunsaturated fats are very unstable. They're polyunsaturated, meaning there's multiple hydrogen atoms missing, which makes them very unstable. Whereas one missing hydrogen atom is a much more stable oil, and saturated they're completely saturated with hydrogens. That's the most stable. That's why you can fry with those with saturated fats. They're not bad. Monos, some you can. Olive oil burns, macadamia doesn't. That's why I sell macadamia nut oil. But the seed oils have multiple, missing hydrogens, which means if you cook with them, they become destroyed and they're nasty, bad for your body. So
Very inflammatory.
Yeah, and very pro-inflammatory. So you shouldn't be cooking with those. Can you use them if you don't cook with them? Yeah, sure, but you shouldn't. You can't heat them. You're not heating borage oil or primrose oil because you destroy it.
At what point though, as well, like I feel right now people are blaming something like seed oils when they're like, I'm overweight because of seed oils. And it's like, well, no, maybe it's also because
You're unhealthy.
crap load
You're
of stuff.
unhealthy because of seed oils and too many carbs you do.
Exactly. I feel like it's like there's, again, a hyper focus where that's part of the recipe, but it's like, okay, that's this part versus your diet's terrible.
Right.
Your activity is shit.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah, you could eat seed oils if you were doing everything else right.
well, like,
right,
I eat
exactly.
seed oils and
Yeah,
my health is
yeah,
fine,
yeah.
but
Some guys get rid of seed oils, walking on the street, vaping, and drinking an energy drink and doing God knows what else. But he
Everyone
cut out
wants
seed
the
oils.
shortcut to look. My ketogenic diet has been the same for the last 30 years.
Well, I was going to actually touch on
I'm the
that.
first
You're-
person who talked about it
Yeah.
from a performance standpoint, and and no one, everyone thought I was crazy at first.
Nah,
now it's all the fad.
Yeah.
Adkins said, "Don't eat carbs, you'll lose weight." He was right. He just never basically laid out what the protein fat requirements were. For a medical ketogenic diet, it's high fat, moderate protein, low carb. For bodybuilders and people who train, it has to be high protein, moderate fat, low carbs. And when you do that, it works. Okay, not everyone needs to do it though.
Yeah.
Not everyone needs to do it.
Pretty much a diet
Why
that you
would
and I
you
have subscribed to our whole
But
lives.
why take a ketogenic diet that works, which is my performance ketogenic, and restrict that? There's no reason to restrict it. If you're restricting all the good aspects of it, all the healing oils, all the healing fats in there, and you're taking them out and you're giving only saturated fats in a carnivore diet. It's a restrictive ketogenic diet. It's stupid. There's no reason for it. There's no reason that diet should be any better than the generalized ketogenic
That's what I was
diet.
gonna say. You've kind of been known for like one of the bigger proponents of like a healthier ketogenic diet. A lot of your athletes you would prep, and I know you get like in the
I do it with all the
bodybuilding.
women. I do all the women on ketogenic. They do great on it.
Yeah.
But to me, I hate when people try to change something that works.
Yeah.
Because they
gotta
want to
put
make
their
it
spin
gimmicky.
on 'em.
They
They-
love
yeah,
to make
they-
it gimmicky.
Or something unique too, like
you
that
remember
makes
when-
them their thing.
Do you remember when they were selling ketones?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
They still do.
Boy, raspberry ketones. You got regular ketones.
Yeah,
keto
but they still drink the ketone. Those
They were
ketone
saying
drinks.
that if you drink the ketones or take the ketones,
It'll put you into
it'll put you in
ketosis.
ketosis. Yeah, you'll register ketones in your blood, but your brain is not burning
You're
them
not
because
in
there's still
dietary
carbs.
ketosis.
Yeah,
You
you
got to get
still
rid of the
have
carbs.
carbohydrates.
It was the biggest scam of all time, and people were trying to get me to promote it because they said, "Well, you're the keto guy." I said, "Yeah, but it doesn't work."
But it'll
though."
give you energy and make you feel better.
Yeah.
And
But
everyone-
perform
it's
better.
like-
Someone sent me a
Coconut
drink.
oil.
They made a drink, a keto drink. It was like in a carbonated keto drink. They sent me a few of them. I couldn't get past one sip. It was so terrible. I was afraid. I was embarrassed to call the guy and tell him that they were terrible.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
But that's what it always comes down to. Again, people want the pill that makes the results.
Yes.
You know, like
well, they got Ozempic
Well,
now. So.
and then the
That
world
one
we
seems to
live
be
in,
working.
people
It
got to
actually
stay
works.
Yeah, it
relevant.
actually
You know,
works.
it's like people got to find their way to sell their shit. You know,
The GLP-1 agonists seem to be the closest thing we have right now
To a cheat code.
something that actually works. But I think that these doctors have an onus of responsibility to explain to people that they have to eat.
yeah.
Because if they don't,
yeah.
then you're liable. You
Well,
can't
the-
just give
well, you
someone a
lose
drug.
muscle and then-
The
Yeah.
poison's in
So-
the
so
portion.
the
And I
yo-yo
think
is
the
inevitably
application
happening.
of it is where it's flawed.
Yeah.
Like to the person specifically.
isn't that often the case though?
Yeah.
Like there's a great product, but the education surrounding it is terrible.
Well, but you
and-
got to remember, a lot of it's coming down from big pharma. Like this is how it has to be taken, and obviously, you know, there's
And
money
look,
involved.
like we're
and-
in the industry, so we get it. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made when you're selling the hot thing, and especially weight loss is a very vulnerable. Everybody's looking for the thing that they that they can take that
magic
makes
bullet.
that process easier. We preach about it as much as we possibly can. Like if you're going to take these drugs, don't take enough to starve the weight
Well,
off.
your diet first.
Take enough
and
to
you have,
diet
you have
the weight
tools in
off.
the toolbox. To
Dieting
cut
the weight off
corners, right?
is key. Like you got to still be on a nutrition plan.
I'll wrap up with this. Okay. Bodybuilders always ask me whenever there's something new like Ozempic or tirzepatide comes out, and they're like, will this replace? I think this is great because it's going to replace. Now people won't use clenbuterol and T3. I said,
What?
are you naive? They'll
gonna
just
add
add
it.
it on top.
Yeah.
Same thing with like, oh, myostatin's out. We're blocking myostatin. No one has to take GH and steroids
take them
anymore.
both.
What are you crazy? They're going to just add it onto the
Cook it
stack.
up.
One more. We're
Right.
guilty of the same thing. We talk about a new product. It's not replacing the other thing. It's just adding to it.
Do you sell the terfenicine?
Testosterone.
Yeah. That's another like really good idea. It stimulates
SNDRI,
three
Serotonin.
Well, it has three different neurotransmitters it increases, and it seems to get rid of appetite, but
I
it
like
doesn't
it.
have the slowing effect on the GI tract.
So it makes you in a good mood. You know. So
So will will people use that to replace the GLP ones?
take 'em together.
They'll take them together.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll stack them.
it's perfect.
It's just like NAD,
Actually, I'll give you
like
some. I got some
NAD,
you can try
NRM,
later.
NMN. I mean,
I don't need to lose any weight.
Well, no, it's actually what it does with like with serotonin, norepinephrine, or noradrenaline, and dopamine. You actually get like this. It's not so much on the SSRI, but your mood goes up. But you'll notice like your motivation, your focus to
really?
get shit done is crazy. I kind of look at it as like a safer form of phentermine for appetite control, a safer form of Adderall for cognitive function and focus.
Wow.
And then you get a kind of like a metabolic increase
You get
through
the
the
sweats.
noradrenaline or norepinephrine.
definitely get the sweats
Yeah,
from it.
yeah.
But you got to go low. See, a lot of people are taking too much, and then you get anxiety.
What's the ideal dose of the stuff?
Usually, I recommend 250 to start. Just to
They come in
see.
250s, 500, 1,000.
Yeah.
You want 1,000, you're in.
I don't think anybody would ever should
No.
touch 1,000.
You're
They
up for
first
2
came out
days.
with the thousands. I'm like, took it. I was
Maybe
like,
I'll write a diet book on this stuff.
Yeah.
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 Finally, have the motivation.
Yeah.
Well,
Perfect.
thanks, Dave, man. We really
Thank you
appreciate
for having
your
me.
wealth
It
of
was a
knowledge
pleasure,
and
man.
always exciting to
Great interview. Thanks.
Yeah.
have a guest like you on the show, man. Thank
All
you.
right,
man.
guys, just quickly, make sure bit.ly/TCleansUSA, 10% off your first thing. Mention the ManLab, links in the description, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.